be interviewing Mike Reiss now. This was a pre-recorded session. He is a writer and producer of The Simpsons, which is the longest running show, animation show on American TV. It's been on for 32 years and still going strong. I think they will renew it again in the next 2 years. So this was pre-recorded because Mike couldn't make it today. So we will just move on to the session. It was a deeply motivating and inspiring to speak to somebody so prolific and funny. So yes, let's play the session out. Mike, it's an honor. You've won 4 Emmys and a Peabody Award during your 32 years of writing for The Simpsons. You ran the show in season 4, which Entertainment Weekly called the greatest season of the greatest show in history. In 2006, you received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Animations Writers Caucus and have written jokes for comedy legends such as Johnny Carson, Joan Rivers, Gary Shandling, and Pope Francis. Mike, you're truly a global ambassador of unadulterated joy, and thank you for rearranging your schedule 3 times to meet with us today. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. And people always think the Pope Francis thing is a joke, but if you look, I see I have a platinum record behind me, and just to the left of that, underneath, is my certificate from Pope Francis calling me a missionary of joy. I wrote jokes for the Pope, and I was hoping to get paid, but instead I just got that certificate.
Well, I hope that means so much. Oh my God, that's such a great honor. You've been working on The Simpsons for 32 years. It's half your life, Mike. We want to know who was Mike Reiss before The Simpsons happened to him.
I am, what I am is just the luckiest man in the world. I think since we're talking about entrepreneurship and that kind of thing, and what's interesting to know about me is I can only write jokes. That's all I do. I can't sing or dance. I can't skate or ski. I can't type. I'm a professional writer who doesn't know how to type. I don't speak a foreign language. The only thing I do is know how to write jokes, and yet the world has just opened itself up to me, and gotten me to work with the Pope and that kind of thing. So if you have something you're good at, I guess just go with it.
That's invaluable advice, but thank God, Mike, you can't do other things. Otherwise, I don't know what level of Legend 2.0 you would land up being. So I'm so happy that you're sticking to your lane. Okay, you said in an interview that Simpsons works because it's about universal themes, right? Human folly and frailty, a dysfunctional family, and American humility, accepting that there is the level of stupid that exists. How did the idea of Simpsons come about?
It's an amazing story. I love to tell it again. It's a little inspiring in how half-baked everything was that led us to this point, which was there was a show, it was the lowest rated show on TV called The Tracy Ullman Show. The critics loved it. The public would not go near it. And they had this idea just to put 1-minute cartoons to break up the sketches on the Tracy Ullman Show. And they bring in a local cartoonist, Matt Groening. He's a very, very popular underground cartoonist, probably making $100 a week. And they said, just come in for a meeting. Now, this is something that's happened to all of us, which was right before the meeting, somebody says to him, we're very excited to hear about your new project. And he didn't have a new project. He thought this was just a meet and greet meeting. So in 5 minutes, Matt Groening invented The Simpsons. He drew the characters, he gave them their names, and the name part was easy because Matt Groening's parents are named Homer and Marge, and he has 2 sisters named Lisa and Maggie. So that was it. He put 5 minutes work into this show, and now he's a billionaire. So think if he had put an hour into it. But these 1-minute shorts were so popular, they decided to try turning them into a half-hour show. And one day I was working on the next to the lowest rated show on TV. So another critical darling called It's Gary Shandling Show. And I was on summer break, and they called me up and they said, would you like to work on this new show we're doing? It's called The Simpsons. And I said, why are you calling me? I don't know you. And they said, we're calling you because everyone else in town has turned the job down. Nobody wanted to work on The Simpsons. Nobody thought animation for adults would work. It was on the Fox network, which was a brand new network with a terrible reputation. Now it's an established network with a terrible reputation. So I took it. It was just the summer job to work on The Simpsons. I didn't tell anyone else what I was doing. I was so ashamed. And we just had fun. It was a bunch of, and the proof that they couldn't get established writers on the show was that the original Simpsons, that first season, was created by people who'd never written a TV script before. There were sketch writers and joke writers. One guy was an advertising man, and one guy had been a sports writer. And we just said, well, nobody's going to watch this, so let's make it fun. Let's just make the kind of show we always wanted to see on TV, and let's entertain ourselves. And that, I guess, more than anything, turned out to be the secret of the success of the show.
It's incredible. It's so uninhibited and unapologetic, and I think that's why people love it so much. It's those thoughts that you never want to spell out, right?
Yeah.
And it spells it out also openly. You unleashed a global phenomenon, Mike, and they love you everywhere: Singapore, Israel, Iran, China, India. A news headline said that people in Bolivia actually were so upset that their 2-hour broadcast of The Simpsons had been reduced to an hour, and they took to the streets and marched to the capital. Would love to know who really benefits the most financially, because we're talking about entrepreneurship here. Is the studio?
The studio makes a lot. The creators of the show, Matt Groening, James L. Brooks, and Sam Simon make a lot. Sam Simon died, one of the creators of the show, an instrumental guy. He died 20 years ago, and he still gets paid $60,000 a week to be the producer of the show. So, wow. I hope we're all doing that well when we're dead. So they do the best. Here's an interesting fact people should know. When I joined The Simpsons, I had many other offers when I went there full time. And they said, this is before the show came on the air. They said, if you join our show, we will give you 1% of the profits. Okay. Oh. So here we are 33 years later. The show has grossed $5 billion. And every quarter I get a statement from Fox saying, we're still not in profits. I've still never gotten a penny on that deal.
You're serious?
It's unbelievable. And I go to lawyers. It's not like I've sat this through, and they go, wow, that is a great, dirty contract you signed. They said, maybe you'll never get a penny. Maybe your grandchildren will get something. And I don't have kids, so I'm going to have to adopt grandchildren just for them to get the money. But that's it. So I am not the guy who has benefited financially from it. I guess the lesson for your audience out there to look at me is that not all Jews are smart about business.
But oh my God, Mike, that's very insightful.
Yeah.
That's very insightful to look into paperwork. But that is a battle with studios, right? The overheads are always going to let the profits out reflect on books. And that's again, the audiences need to take away that just legally you need to really arm yourselves so that there's a long term.
Any of our entrepreneurs out there, you can't be naive about this stuff. And the other lesson is, it can't be about the money. There's a world out there, people who are just thinking you're trying to create something new, and they're thinking, how can I rob you? And whatever you're doing, you got to really love it for the work itself. And I do love working at The Simpsons. They do, they pay me a very good salary, and I can't complain about that. But I just wish they'd never offered this bogus contract to me for profits.
So, would it be right to say that your life lesson is just love, do what you love doing?
Yeah, there's a couple of life lessons I have. I mean, again, I told you how I have no skills or talents. The other thing is, entrepreneurs will come in and they'll be Steve Jobs. They'll be dynamic and visionary. And I'm not any of those things. I'm very quiet. I'm generally a very shy guy. I don't like to ruffle feathers. But one thing I've learned is just say yes. It's so simple. Say yes to any opportunity that comes your way. So The Simpsons is a great example of that. This job came out of the blue and I said yes. And the way I got into Hollywood was I was working in New York right out of college. I was writing for a magazine. I love New York. I love the magazine job. And one day I get a call saying, we're making a movie out here in Hollywood and it's not funny. And we need someone to just come on the set and write jokes while we're shooting the film and make it funnier. Can you be here tomorrow? And I said yes. I just jumped in it. I knew, I loved my job, but things were going to be better in Hollywood. And so I just hung up the phone and I went to the boss and I quit my job and I ran out on my lease. And I was in LA that night. That night I was on the set of this movie I hadn't even heard of the day before. And it was a movie some of you may have heard of. It was a little comedy called Airplane 2. Airplane 2. It was a comedy so bad it actually won an award in France. But it's the job that got me out to Hollywood, got me into show business, got me an agent, and got me where I am. So I always say that. Just say yes. I got the airplane job. I got the Simpsons job the same way I got a wife. I was not the first choice, but I was available.
Oh my God. Um, so I believe the show was commissioned for 6 week pilot run, right? And now it's running in its 717th week, going to 728. Like,
Wow,
what?
is that the actual numbers?
Yeah. What are the three top reasons it works and it's continuing to work?
Oh, let me see if I've got three. One is that everybody works really, really hard at the show. Nobody, and when the show first started out, it was just a small team of writers, as I mentioned, and we were all friends. And it's the only job I ever had where we would work, 12 hours a day and then go hang out together. We just wanted to be with each other. And that not only made the work more pleasant, but it also put an extra pressure on you. You didn't want to let down your friends and you didn't want to look lazy in front of your friends. It's much easier to kind of goof off in front of strangers than in front of your friends. So we all work very, very hard. The other thing is we all get along. I wish I should have brought the prop. I wrote a book called Springfield Confidential, 300 pages about my life at The Simpsons. And the book came out and was a bestseller. And one Israeli critic criticized the book. He goes, "Where is the dirt? Where is the friction?" And it was only when the book came out, I go, "Oh, there is no dirt. There is no friction. There's no scandal at The Simpsons. Everybody, the writers all love each other. We all get along. We love our actors. The actors are our friends. We work hand in glove with the animators. It's just a big, happy family." And maybe 3 times in 30 years, someone has come along who doesn't play nicely with others and they've gotten fired. And they were talented writers. We had to say, "Gee, we love your work, but nobody likes you." So that's the other thing. And I guess the third thing is sort of like the second is there's no friction. There's a real myth, I think, in all creative enterprises that friction creates dynamism and friction creates creativity. And it's simply not true, or not true in my experience. And having worked on The Simpsons, I've went and read books about other classic long-running shows like MASH or Monty Python or Cheers. And it was the same thing there. Everybody got along. Everyone loved coming into work in the morning. So that's it. I think don't fight, get along, like the people you work with, and work very, very hard. There's a man named Al Jean. He used to be my writing partner, and then I kind of left The Simpsons to try other pursuits, like writing for the Pope. And he just stayed with The Simpsons, and he's run the show for 22 years. And yet every day when I come into work with Al Jean, he acts like it's his first day on the job. He has so much enthusiasm. He has so much energy. He's probably pitched 1 million jokes for The Simpsons. But every time I look at him, I go, where did that come from? How did he think of that one?
That's amazing. It's such a rewarding moment to be in a group amongst a group of people who just love doing what they are doing.
It is a very lucky break. Let me add one more thing, which is really good at the show, which is it's self-regulating. It's a lot of people like Al Jean put in 5 days a week there. But over time, people have just realized, if they've been there 20 years, we have people there 20 years who just go, I can't be fresh. I can't be good to you 5 days a week. And so they work 3 days a week and they get paid 3 days a week. And I've been there forever. I've been there longer than anyone. And I work 1 day a week because I know I can only give them 1 day of full concentrated energy. So I'm down to a day a week, and people have suggested I cut back to an hour a month, but
that's so interesting. But were there any challenges that you encountered as an artist? Not just
and I don't feel like I'm an artist. I'm maybe I'm a craftsman. Maybe I'm some guy in a little factory just painting wooden shoes or something like that. I've never felt like an artist. The only factor is, again, the sheer amount of work at the job. When we start, we now have 20 to 25 writers on the show, but we started it with six people doing the same amount of work that 25 are doing. And there was major burnout. And I gained 70 pounds when I was running the show. I went to the doctor at the end. I just ran the show for 2 years. I gained 70 pounds. And the doctor said to me, "You're morbidly obese. Do you know what that is?" I go, "That's what Homer is." And in fact, at the end of running The Simpsons, I weighed what Homer Simpson weighed. It was uncanny. We've established on the show, he weighs 239, and somehow I weighed 239. And I want to write a diet book called How to Lose 70 Pounds by Not Running The Simpsons.
I'll definitely buy that one. Okay, you've created not just iconic characters, you've built worlds, and that really transports you and want to belong. Like, we want to belong to those worlds. Did you ever consider that you actually covered the past, future, and present? And I'm referring to like Kung Fu Panda and Ice Age and Simpsons. How rewarding was this pivot to shape all three worlds?
It's funny. Frankly, I never realized it. I'll turn this into an anecdote. I was on a panel. I'll turn it into two anecdotes. I was on a panel to talk about writing with a guy named Dan Graney. Now, Dan Graney may be the most brilliant writer we have at The Simpsons. I wish people would just follow him around with a notebook because he's always saying wise and hilarious things. And Dan is a graduate of Harvard Law School. And the only reason he's not a lawyer today is that he had a rival at Harvard Law School who was much smarter than he was. And if Dan wrote a good paper, this guy wrote a great paper. And so one day I said to him, "Well, look at you now, Dan. You're writing for The Simpsons. You've won Emmys. What became of your law school rival?" And he said, "He's Barack Obama." I said, "Look at you. You've still got a job." So the point, that is a long way to say, I was on a panel with Dan Graney, and they introduced me, and they go, and our next panelist is Mike Reiss. He's a Renaissance man. And Dan Graney starts laughing. He goes, Renaissance man, this guy? And they said, well, he's written books and movies and TV shows. And he goes, he's just a lonely guy who sits at the computer. And that's when I realized, oh, he's right. In one line, he just summed up what my career, what a good writer's career is. It's just sitting at the computer thinking. And the longer you sit and think, the better it's going to be. And it doesn't matter whether it's a children's book or a big animated feature, or I've done everything from children's books to really dirty off-color cartoons for the internet and the Pope. I keep going to the Pope. And I've done it all, and yet to me, it's all the same kind of writing. It's just sort of, well, what tickles me? I always think I write for smart children and dumb adults.
That's amazing. Bringing the stakeholders early in. That's incredible. You named
I'm going to tell one more quick story. It's timely and everything. So I've written for the Ice Age movies. I've written all 5 I co-wrote 5 Ice Age movies. I wrote the Ice Age Christmas special. And if you're wondering, how do you set a Christmas special 10,000 years before Christ? The answer is you just do it, right? So these Ice Age movies, they're popular in America. They do okay. Overseas, they're the biggest animated films of all time. They're bigger than Toy Story, bigger than Shrek. And so I was visiting the Ukraine. This is what makes it topical. I was in Ukraine about 10 years ago, and I'm in a beautiful park in Kiev, which may not be there anymore. And everywhere there were statues of Scrat. Now, Scrat is this ugly squirrel in the Ice Age movies who always wants an acorn but can never quite get it. And I asked the Ukrainian woman, why do you love Scrat so much? And she said, he teaches children that life is hopeless.
He teaches children that you will never get what you always want, or you may have.
Yeah, it's a good lesson these days.
Such an incredible experience, like huge installations, I suppose.
Yes, I mean, again, a big installation in the park, and I went to the Kiev Wax Museum, and the first thing you see is Scrat and the Ice Age characters. Once again, I'm sure they didn't get legal clearance for any of this stuff, but
I hope they survive. I hope they just stay safe, and we're able to visit again. Um, you named Obama, and it's so strange that my next question really lines up from what he said once, that Simpsons exist. That it does exist is a true genius of America. Faith in the simple dream of people and insistence on small miracles, that we can say what we think and write what we think without, hearing a knock at the door. Censorship. Did you ever face it?
no. The answer is no. I think, again, there's always one time in 33 years where we did a joke where we show some nuns, and then they strip off their habits and they've got bikinis underneath and they're washing a car and spraying each other with hoses. And then it turned out it was a commercial for the New Catholic Church, join us. And we put that in the show, and when it went on the air, that was cut. They had just cut it out of our show and didn't tell us. And we just said to them, look, Fox, if you're going to edit our show, we'll go somewhere else. I think NBC would be interested in The Simpsons. And they never did it again. I mean, and that's it. No, there's been no censorship that I can remember. And we're self-censoring too, especially now. Most of the writers have kids, and they want to watch the show with their kids, so they know what's going in there. I think part of what's lucky is whatever The Simpsons is the same as it was in episode 1. And if The Simpsons was something you weren't going to like. You knew it right away and stopped watching in the 80s. That's how long ago. So no, we never get complaints or problems like that. I'll tell you one more story. We did an episode where Homer smokes medicinal marijuana.
Yeah.
And Fox said, you can't air it. And we said, well, we made it. You can show it or not show it, or you can. And they said, well, all right, we'll show it. But we're hiring 24 operators to take angry phone calls when the show comes in, and you'll have to deal with these people. And they put the show on the air. They had 24 operators standing by with phones, no calls. Nobody had any problems with Homer smoking marijuana at 8 o'clock at night. So that's it. Our audience knows what they're getting at this point.
Okay, I'm Apurva and my pet name is Apu, so I
Okay.
will ask you about the Apu controversy.
Not a problem. Please do.
The only Indian in the show, did it hurt the ratings, and was it a meta reflection of the struggles the industry was going through? How do you think diversity representation has really evoked in content creation or evolved?
Okay, yeah, it's a great question. I'll even personalize it, which is I sort of accidentally created Apu, but I saw the problems 30 years in advance, in that I wrote the very first line the quickie mark clerk ever had in the show, and it was just called Clerk. And his whole part, he just said 35 cents, please. Now this is 1989, and even back then, it was just a cliche to have Indians be convenience store clerks. I'm not even saying it's a bad stereotype. It was just a comedy cliche. So I wrote the line, the clerk says 35 cents, please. And in capital letters in boldface, I said, the clerk is not an Indian. And then we got to the table reading, where the cast reads the script out loud. We got to that line, and the actor read it with an Indian accent, and I got a very big laugh. And that's how Apu became an Indian, and that's how I learned that actors don't read stage directions. So here's the thing about Apu, and it's something that hit me just the other day, which is The Simpsons is very nimble handling criticism. You know, we made a joke once about adoption, and people who were adopted found it very offensive, and we took it out of the show. You know, you never saw it again. We did a joke about Tourette's syndrome, and people complained. We took it out of the show. We would see complaints online. Homer is getting too stupid, and we adjusted that. If you can imagine Homer too stupid, but we listened to our fans, and that's the thing about Apu is the show went 28 years and nobody complained to us. We never heard anyone have a problem, and in fact, I don't know your experience, in the early years of the show, people of Indian descent would tell me, thank you for putting him on the show. He's the only Indian on television. And the children of Indian immigrants would come up to me and say, my uncle talks just like Apu. Or I love this. They said, we like to trick my dad into saying things Apu would say. So never a complaint until I think 3 years ago, Harry Kondabalu made a documentary called The Problem with Apu. And suddenly it was a firestorm. Again, The Simpsons really never gets criticized. People, it was very well supported and loved. And suddenly, everybody was mad at us and we were racist. And Newsweek magazine published an article about Apu is racist and The Simpsons is racist. And Apu had literally just been on the cover of Newsweek 3 weeks before. 3 weeks before, they had no problem with him. And suddenly, it's a racist character. And here's the Simpsons twist. This is the twist in the story that made it all kind of entertaining to us, which was 3 years before Harry Kondabalu made his documentary about Apu, 3 years before this firestorm came out, Hank Azaria, the actor who plays Apu, just came into us one day and said, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable playing this character. And so we just stopped putting Apu in the show. We didn't make a big announcement out of it, but we have 200 characters on the show. Nobody ever noticed Apu was missing. So here's Harry Kondabolu who makes a whole documentary. We've got to get rid of Apu. And it's like, we did it 3 years ago. Nobody noticed. So that's the story. And that's where Apu stands right now. I call him, he's like Schrodinger's cat. He's Schrodinger's character. He's in the show, but he's not in the show. I think if we talk about it a lot because I love the character. I always say Apu is the only person in Springfield who works hard at his job. Everyone else is a lazy bum, and he seems very focused, and he's always in a good mood. So I loved writing for him. But that's where he stands. If we bring him back, he will be voiced by an Indian actor. That's a no-brainer, and that's what's done today, and we have no problem with that.
Return. I hope he does return with the new evolved way of just Hollywood adopting diversity. It would be just incredible to have Apu back. Um,
Great. One thing I'd like to say is he's been on the show all these years. What they don't comment on is Homer has 3 best friends, and one of them is black, one of them is Indian, and he's never commented on it. He's just never noticed it. He just has this multiracial gang of pals. That's it. And it just happened by accident. If I can tell one more story about this,
yes.
Sometimes you can do sometimes you do the wrong thing and you learn your lesson and you do the right thing. But if you're on as long as The Simpsons, sometimes you do the right thing and then over time the right thing becomes the wrong thing and you've got to change. So when we created The Simpsons, we would write the characters, our actors would voice the characters, and then the very last decision is what race are they? And we told the animators, assign race randomly. Just make certain characters black, certain characters white. And we did this so that none of our characters would talk or sound like racial stereotypes, and we wouldn't write to racial preconception. So that's it. The fact that there's a cop, Eddie, who's black, but the voice is just Hank Azaria doing Sylvester Stallone. There's nothing, and there's his best friend, his friend Carl is also black, but I don't know what that voice is, but we never went to stereotypical jokes. It was color blind. And then just what became right in the world has changed. And now they say, no, an actor, if you're playing a person of color, you should be a person of color. And so we've recast all those characters, and it's a little surreal in that the character of Eddie, who's just a Sylvester Stallone impression, because he's black, we had to find a black actor who does Sylvester Stallone. So
No,
that's it. But we did it. We did it, and it was easy. And I like that we've offered these opportunities to other people.
Thank you, Mike. I'm here up for adoption, in case you want to consider, right here. With the war waging in the northern hemisphere and the world literally, halting and catching fire from 3 pandemic surges through 100+ million people devouring Squid Games. I don't know if you watched it. It really speaks to the psyche of the world today. Mike, you're a harbinger of peace. And no wonder Pope Francis declared you a missionary of joy. I deeply hope that the most important stories that need to be told continue to find their way to you. And you keep telling stories.
We couldn't believe it. We've been on so long, we never look at the ratings anymore. We're happy if we have a job the next day. And just recently, the showrunner looked at the ratings. He goes, we're the #1 show on TV. We had no idea. On network television, we're still #1 after 33 years. So I think the show has another 4 or 5 million years left in it.
I'm so sure as well. Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for being here. And it's just my absolute honor. It definitely will count as the top 10 moments of my life to be interviewing you. So thank you so much. It's
Thank
such
you.
an honor.